all the way back in the summer of 2023, I did what basically every other football YouTuber did and made my Premier League 23-24 predictions.
Now, as most YouTubers have done, I've made many a mistake with my predictions. I can't remember all of them, but thankfully, don't know about that. We are going to watch back my 23-24 predictions. Now, I've got a screen to the side of the camera, so we're going to watch along together. Let us know your predictions from the start of the season in the comments below. How close were we? Did we predict an Arsenal versus Manchester City final game week title race, even though it seems like it's a done deal? City are winning the league. Did we predict the newly promoted teams to go straight back down? Well, stick a thumbs up and let's take a bloody look. Let's go.
So ladies and gents, before I get into my predictions, I thought I'd go quite neutral and wear an old school Hereford United away top. Let me know in the comments below if you're from Hereford. Probably not, but something you've probably done is in your own predictions, you probably put Luton Town as finishing bottom of the table, number 20 in the list. Unfortunately, I've put they could possibly get fewer points than Derby did. Derby are the team to get the fewest points in Premier League history. That was in the 07-08 season. Unfortunately, it could be a reality this year with Luton Town. They're going to go into the Premier League with a lot of momentum, a lot of excitement. It's very much a fairy tale story. Luton have skyrocketed through the leagues from non-league football. I can't remember his name. They do have a player in their squad who has been in that squad since they were in non-league football all the way to Premier League football. So I know most of us are going to be behind Luton Town. But yeah, unfortunately, Luton Town at number 20. I am going to try and get to Kenilworth Road this year, as well as all other 19 Premier League clubs.
So there we go. Yes, as I said, we did get to all 20 Premier League clubs. Check those videos out on the channel. Wasn't too far off, obviously, unless an absolute miracle was to happen. Luton, although not officially, mathematically, they are basically relegated, as are the other two newly promoted teams we'll get onto in a moment. But I think, despite my prediction being somewhat off, I think they did come out strong at the start. They were people were saying about they weren't getting points despite really good performances. At the end of the day, points on the board is all that matters. Luton performed well against the likes of Liverpool. Kenilworth Road was for a while a bit of a fortress. It was a tough place to go. Manchester United only scraped out of there with like a 1-0 win. I think it was close. So just like that Hereford United shirt, I chose today to wear a mid-90s QPR away top. I thought it's somewhat inoffensive.
Coming in at number 19, again, probably quite a predictable one. I know last season we had all newly promoted teams survive, Nottingham Forest, Bournemouth and Fulham. But unfortunately this year I do think 2 out of the 3 will get relegated, and that second one being Sheffield United. I've got Sheffield United there just by the fact that I'm just looking and comparing all the squads, and I just don't feel like they've got enough to survive. I know they've just lost, is it Unday? I can never pronounce his name. Unday to Marseille. He was a childhood Marseille fan apparently, and that's definitely killed their momentum because they had a great striker up top. And yeah, they've got to try and scramble around now and find another guy up top to fight for points, get goals to survive. Unfortunately, Sheffield United, number 19.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, they didn't finish second from bottom. They finished rock bottom, but everything happened that we predicted. Everyone was worried the fact that they really went into this year's Premier League season unprepared. They sold some of their best players, and I think we've seen, despite teams overspending and getting done by FFP, you do need to take that risk. You do need to spend money in order to compete with the Premier League's elite.
Number 18, I've got Bournemouth. Now this one I've been back and forth on. Put here they've got I can't pronounce names, I do apologise. He's in, taking over Gary O'Neill. It caused a bit of a stir. Everyone thought Gary O'Neill did a great job last year. Some were even saying he could have been Premier League Manager of the Year. He didn't get that title, and unfortunately he's lost his job. I do feel like that's going to bite them in the ass like a rabid dog. I do feel like, unfortunately, Bournemouth have got a bit cocky. They've got rid of a manager who's doing well. Iriola, however you say it, let me know in the comments below. I think he's going to come in with some momentum, and unfortunately I don't think Bournemouth are going to have enough to survive.
Well, that one bit me in the ass, because obviously Bournemouth rocked up at Old Trafford and won 3-0, and despite they did start a little bit iffy, and we're all getting a little bit like, yeah, they shouldn't have got rid of Gary O'Neill. Wolves started really well, but Ariola, I still don't know how to pronounce his name properly. It was a perfect fit for Bournemouth. Bournemouth have had a cracking season, and my prediction of going down was way off. All credit to Bournemouth.
That said, from number 18 all the way up to number 12, I think it's going to be really close. Similar to a couple of months before the end of last year, I've got number 17 as being Fulham, and I put that they're going to survive by the skin of their teeth. Fulham have got some decent players, don't get me wrong, and I know a lot of you are going to be shaking your head with this prediction, but we've already got Mitrovic, who wanted to move to Saudi Arabia. He's already causing some trouble. He did refuse to go on Fulham's pre-season tour. He's there. I don't know, I just feel like they're going to be the underachievers of the Premier League this season. Fulham at number 17.
So again, a little bit off with that prediction. Just as a point of reference, there is the Premier League table on screen for you right now. And as you can see, my prediction of Fulham just scraping survival of the Premier League. All right, they've had a fairly good season. Not amazing. They're 14th at the moment. Will they finish 14th? Possibly. That's probably where you'd expect Fulham to be. A lot of people did disagree with my prediction of Fulham falling in 17th place at the time. So maybe that was a bit rash of a decision, as a lot of them are. Let's crack on.
I've got number 16 being Nottingham Forest. They could have gone down last year. They were very, very close. But I put one name, Anthony Elanga. Now, as a United fan, sorry if you're not a United fan, as a United fan, I was very glad to get rid of Anthony Elanga. Not because he's a bad player, he's just one of those who you look at when he's in the starting lineup and you know, Elanga's playing. You know, he doesn't fill you with any excitement, and I think that alone kind of puts Nottingham Forest at like a 16th place. Elanga's a good player, but I just don't feel like they've got enough to progress up the table.
Well, again, that's possibly bit me in the bum, because it just shows what Manchester United do. As soon as players come to United, their performances suffer. Anthony Elanga was basically invisible at Manchester United, very average, but he's come to Nottingham Forest, and when we went to the City Ground, he played really well. He's had an alright season for Forest. Not a bad prediction though, obviously one place off. Again, as we refer to the Premier League table, I predicted them to finish 16th. They finished 17th. Again, they've had a little bit of trouble with FFP, but survival, I think, is all that matters for Forest this season. Hopefully they build upon that. They've got a great set of fans. Not a bad prediction there, Roy.
Next on the predictions, I've got Everton. Now, this is Everton's final season at Goodison Park, and obviously it's been a struggle over the past couple of years. I do feel like Sean Dyche is going to get him in order, but that said, what have Everton really done since the struggles of the last couple of years? They've not really done much in the transfer market. They've got some good players, they've suffered with injuries, but I just feel like Sean Dyche is going to really struggle with what he's got this year. It's going to be a little bit like Burnley back in the day. I think they'll be, I'll put them at 15th by the way, so I think they'll be safe.
So yeah, our first spot on prediction, I predicted Everton to finish in 15th, and I think mathematically they can't finish any higher. They might slip down. I think if Brentford get a win, Brentford are 1 point below them, but as a filming this, bang on, 15th place for Everton, which under the circumstances, considering FFP, the points deductions and so on, Everton fans will be taking that all day long. With the points on the board, they're obviously going to be even higher up the second half of the table. So Everton, not as bad as a lot of people did predict at the start of the season.
Number 14, as I look at my list, I'm a little bit shocked actually I put them this high. I've got Wolves. Obviously they've lost Ruben Neves. Really sorry about my pronunciations. They've lost him, their best player, to Saudi Arabia, and I do feel like they'll suffer. But ironically, I've kind of got them finishing fairly high for that fact. I've got them at 14, but again, I think this could really be interchangeable. There's going to be 1 or 2 points separating all these clubs from 12th all the way down to the relegation zone. For that reason, I've got Wolves at 14.
Again, not too bad a prediction, right? As I said, a lot of those could be interchangeable, as we'll see on this final game week 38 of the season. Some of those places are quite tight and they might change. It's hard to say whether they're correct at this point. But obviously I've got Wolves at 14th in my predictions, whereas at the moment, as I'm filming this, they're 13th. Now, again, I don't want to come across a little bit cocky, but a lot of people did predict Wolves to go down. People were concerned, as I said, from some of their big name players they sold. And with that in mind, Gary O'Neill has obviously done a fantastic job. They've kind of drifted away a little bit as the season's progressed. But again, the form guide's not too good. Over the last 5 games, they've won 1, lost 4. So evidence of that is in the table. But they started really well. Very unlucky in game week 1 versus Manchester United, with the controversy of Onana, the penalty and stuff. That literally feels like yesterday, doesn't it? I can't believe we're at the end of the bloody season. But yeah, Wolves done a lot better than a lot of people had predicted.
Number 13, I've got West Ham. I've got West Ham at 13, which I suppose is a bit of an improvement from last year. But for the fact that they're also going to be playing Europa League this year, I do feel like playing on Thursdays definitely impacts your weekend's games. We found it with Man United last year, they just lost their legs. The obvious one, they've lost Declan Rice, they've lost the captain, they've lost their star player.
So yes, I predicted West Ham to finish 13th. Again, at the moment they're 9th. Now it's very difficult because as soon as you say something pro David Moyes, you get West Ham fans jumping all over you. You're not allowed to suggest that David Moyes has been a decent manager for West Ham. You'll get told off. So I'm going to tread lightly. For me, 9th place, West Ham. I know they've progressed over the years. They've got a fantastic stadium. I think they've had the second highest attendance all season. I think they've pipped the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But 9th place for West Ham, considering, you know, losing Declan Rice, as I said, playing European football and so on. I think they've done really, really well. Fair play to West Ham. And yes, maybe it is time David Moyes moved on for both parties. It's all good.
And then finally, within that big scrap amongst teams that could possibly get relegated, I've got Brentford. Again, they've lost their star man until, was it January? They've lost Ivan Toney. They're not going to have the goals that Ivan Toney produces, the target man up top. And yeah, I do feel like it's definitely going to cause them to slip in to the lower half of the table. But nonetheless, 12th place is quite good for Brentford.
So yeah, 12th place for Brentford. Not way off. They did suffer from not having Ivan Toney. What a player he is. Will he move on in the summer? Possibly. They're at the moment in 16th. I got them at 12th. Yeah, not too bad a prediction there, right?
All of those could be interchangeable. Looking at it now, I think maybe Fulham have got more than some of the teams above them. I could probably bump Fulham up a little bit, and I might drop Forest down, drop Everton down, drop Wolves down, and I might put Fulham above. But I've done my predictions now. Number 12, Brentford.
Yeah, that would have been a good idea. Had you have bumped Fulham up and brought all those down, you would have been pretty similar to how the table's looking right now, Roy. So yeah, not bad, mate, not bad.
As we get out of that little scrap, I've got Crystal Palace at 11th. In a similar position to last year. I think they're going to be safe. I think they've got enough there. They've got some decent players, and I just think they're generally better than the teams below them.
Short and sweet there about Crystal Palace. Obviously, they're the informed team at the moment. Looking at the last 5 games, they've not lost. They've won the last 2. They've drawn 1, and they won the 2 before that. So 4 out of 5 wins. Really not too bad at all. I had Crystal Palace at finishing 11th, which they can still do with 1 game to play. They're on 46 points. Above them is Bournemouth on 48. So Palace could well finish at the top of the second half of the table in 11th.
In number 10, I feel like every season you've got a newly promoted team that does well. Obviously, all 3 survived last year. Fulham did really well. I feel like this year, that team is going to be Burnley. Obviously, Company smashed the championship last year, and I do feel like that momentum that followed Fulham into last year's season will follow Burnley into this year's season. I think they'll do well, and I've got Burnley finishing just inside the top half of the table at 10th.
Cool. Way off there with Burnley. Obviously, got a lot of love for Burnley. I did honestly think, as did a lot of people who made their Premier League predictions at the start of the season, I thought Burnley were going to do well. That stubbornness from Company, refusing to change his playing style, has obviously bit them in the bum, because they're currently sitting 1 place above the bottom spot. Had them finishing in, 10th, just creeping into the second half of the table. They're actually likely, even though I think they can go above Luton, 2 points behind them, they're likely to finish 19th.
And at 9th, I've got Brighton slipping down a little bit. Again, not too bad a position for Brighton, but again, similar to West Ham, the fact that they've got European football, they've done all right actually to hold on to most of their players. Still got Matoma, Caicedo as of right now, but they've lost McAllister to Liverpool. I don't think that's going to be enough to completely deteriorate their momentum though, and I've got Brighton at 9th.
So obviously that was filmed prior to the new season beginning. They did lose Caicedo to Chelsea. His form hasn't transferred over from Brighton to Chelsea though. He's not been the Caicedo we saw at Brighton. Currently they're sitting in 10th. They can't go above West Ham because they're 4 points in front. Obviously I predicted them to finish 9th. Similar to as my prediction suggested though, I think they have suffered from playing European football. They seem to have lost their legs a little bit. But again, put it into perspective, we did a video on Brighton, we visited the Amex, visited the old Withdean and the Goldstone ground, so check that video out on the channel. Again, we've done videos at every Premier League stadium, but we showed the journey Brighton have been on. I'm wearing the old Hereford shirt there. They were almost relegated from the Football League in 1997 when they played Hereford, almost went bust, and here they are finishing mid-table in the Premier League. Fantastic.
Number 8, it just feels like an 8th place kind of season for Tottenham, regardless of whether they keep Harry Kane or whether they lose Harry Kane. Obviously Harry Kane's goals come in abundance. He single-handedly kind of keeps Tottenham up there, but I just feel like Tottenham are destined for 8th place this season. I like Tottenham, so I don't want to be one of those that kind of rip on Tottenham all the time. But unfortunately, I just feel like, yeah, 23, 24, they're destined for 8th place.
As did a lot of people predict, Tottenham have done a little bit better. They've kind of thrown away Champions League hopes towards the end of the season. Obviously, Ange got a little bit fiery with fans this past game. When, let's just talk about it. I've seen Jamie O'Hara on TalkSport. I watched the watch along whilst at work. He was wearing a bloody Manchester City shirt. Disgraceful, O'Hara. They're currently 5th. I think that's locked on. Let's look at the goal difference. They're on 63 points. Chelsea are on 60. But 5th, considering the fact that they sold Harry Kane, their star man, I think a lot of Tottenham fans would be happy with that.
Now above Spurs, again, I've got a bit of a scrap for that final Champions League position. I've actually put Chelsea at 7th. But similar to that bottom table little scrap, at the top, it's going to be very close between the teams above them. I've got Chelsea at 7th place. They'll do better than last season. They can't really do any worse. Pochettino is kind of getting some order within the team. It's really hard because I've just done my Fantasy Premier League team, which we'll do a video on very, very soon. And it was hard to kind of pick Chelsea players because it's hard to know, like there's been so much turmoil over the past year, it's hard to know what is going to be their starting 11 week in, week out. They've not got European football to worry about. So for that reason, I was tempted to put them higher, but I feel like they're just building the foundations now. They've got a very young squad. I don't think they'll have enough to kind of just get them up there in those Champions League spots, but I don't think they'll be far off. So I don't mean to discourage Chelsea by putting them in 7th. I do feel like they'll be a few points away from 4th place.
So fairly well predicted. Newcastle sit behind them on 57 points. Chelsea are on 60 points. It is very close, kind of below the top 4 with Spurs. Well, it's not really between Spurs. Chelsea, Newcastle and Manchester United go in for 6th place. So 1 place off. Chelsea sit 6th at the moment. I predicted them to finish 7th.
Above them though, big fan of his. They do have European football next year. The king of Europa type competitions. I know they're in a Conference League. Unai Emery is a top manager and a top bloke. I love what Emery's doing at Villa. They made some good signings. Diaby is going to be really good. And for that reason, I do feel like Villa will clinch 6th place and get some Europa League for the following season.
So I was kind of bigging Villa up saying that I think they're going to get European football. I don't think anyone predicted they would do quite as well as they've done. If Unai Emery doesn't get manager of the season, for me, it's an absolute travesty. He's been fantastic. Comfortably in 4th spot. They've got Champions League football secured. And as all the social media posts keep saying, they've got Champions League for the very first time. Well, technically, I suppose if you're referring to the rebrand in '92, they have. But as a reminder, Villa won the European Cup, pretty much the same bloody competition, in 1982. So it's really good to see them back in playing top-tier European football. But 6th, they finished 4th. Not bad, Roy.
At 5th, I've got Newcastle. I do feel like they'll drop a place down from last year. I think they'll be decent, but early prediction right now, I kind of think Eddie Howe might get the sack this year. I think it'll be a little bit like when Chelsea had Ranieri and they got to like the Champions League semi-final. I think they finished 2nd that season and then they sacked him, got Mourinho. I think a similar thing will happen. There'll be a controversial sacking at the end of the season for the fact that Newcastle missed out on Champions League football. Then I think they'll get a big name in like Mourinho or someone like that. I think that's an early prediction for like a year away. But there we go, Newcastle at number 5, by no means a bad position for them.
Do you know what? I still kind of agree with that prediction because obviously the season's not over. Newcastle haven't had quite as good a season as they did last season. I predicted them to finish 5th. They currently sit 7th. They could they go above Chelsea in goal difference? I think they could if they win and Chelsea lose. But I still feel like Eddie Howe's job is somewhat unsafe. I do feel like they're going to make their mark at some point. We know the restrictions of FFP, but Newcastle, I think, are just biding their time. They've got under the radar this season a little bit. I think the fact they played Champions League football made them suffer. They've got so many injuries, as have a lot of teams, I know, but they've been really hit hard with injuries. So the fact that they're finishing 7th isn't so bad, really, when you think about it. So a little bit off on that prediction.
Fourth, I've got Liverpool. I do think Liverpool will get Champions League this year. I know they've got to play Europa League, which isn't ideal, but Man United managed to do that last year and get into the Champions League. I think Liverpool will have a very similar season to Manchester United. I think they'll clinch Champions League football and they might get a cup. I think they might get a Carabao Cup, possibly an FA Cup. I do think it'd be a decent season, but very much a transitional season for Liverpool.
Hang on. That's not a bad prediction. So I predicted Liverpool to finish 4th, although that is slightly wrong. They're comfortably 5th. But as I suggested, I thought they'd get Champions League football and win a cup, possibly a League Cup. And look what they've done. Klopp's final season as manager of Liverpool. And it looks like they're going to finish 3rd with a League Cup, which is quite ironic because I'm pretty sure United were mocked for finishing 3rd and celebrating a League Cup as a good season. But it's not a bad season from Liverpool. Obviously, you'd have loved as a Liverpool fan to see the fairy tale of Klopp clinching the Premier League, but it's been all right.
Now at number 3, I've got Manchester United playing in the glorious new away strip. Now, if you think this isn't a nice kit, you are very much wrong. Let me know in the comments below. That is probably the nicest away kit in the Premier League this season. Above that gorgeous Arsenal yellow and blacky blue type kit, above Liverpool's green and I'm sure you Liverpool fans right now will agree, out of your green and white kit and our green and white kit, our green and white kit is way nicer than yours, Liverpool fans. I'm sure you will agree. Shut up, right?
So here's me in a mid-90s QPR top, trying to avoid any kind of controversy, and I've completely eradicated that. I'm obviously winding Liverpool fans up, and I'm quite deluded, not just in my opinion, on that away strip, which I think United gave up on like months ago. They just continually played in the 3rd kit, the white kit, and we hadn't seen that green and white kit for ages. Did we even get any points in it? It's basically the modern version of that famous grey kit. But I think somewhat deluded. Honestly, I thought that United would do a lot better than they've done. Again, maybe it's just that delusional optimism that fans have, not just United fans, but predicting them to finish 3rd is way off. As currently, as I look to the Premier League table, United are sat in 8th, and I do feel like that's where we'll finish. Obviously, we've got a chance of winning the FA Cup, but in reality, we're probably not going to win it because we're facing Manchester City, and we are going to be at the FA Cup final. Unfortunately, not to bloody watch it because I can't get hold of any tickets, but we're going to be doing a live watch-along outside of Wembley. They're going to be filming all the build-up atmosphere for the FA Cup final and so on. So make sure you are subscribed for that video, as well as loads of other videos, matchday vlogs, stadium tours, and so on. Let's see who I've got as the top 2. Well, there's only 2 teams left, but which order do I have them in?
But controversially, I've got Manchester City finishing 2nd, which would make Arsenal the Premier League champions. As much as it pains me to say that, because I am a 90s kid, born in 89, grew up in the 90s, and as a United fan who isn't from Manchester, I still look at Arsenal as my biggest rival. Arsenal caused me so much pain in the late 90s, early 2000s. I really didn't like Arsenal as a kid. I've kind of made peace with them. They've got some great players like Saka. They've also made some great signings this season as well. You've got Rice, obviously. Havertz, everyone's a bit unsure on. Can do well. But they've got... The reason I put Arsenal above Manchester City is the fact that City have lost Gundogan to Barcelona. They've got Kovacic. I don't think he's as good. I think City have definitely possibly weakened their squad from last year. They're going to probably be feeling the hangover, especially Jack Grealish, from winning the treble. The pressure's going to be on. Everyone's going to expect them to deliver. And usually Pep handles the pressure, and I think it'll be very, very, very close. But I think that strength in depth that Arsenal have now got, they've got so many good players in different positions. I think Arsenal will go all the way and City will finish in 2nd place. It's going to be tight, but I think they can do it. I think City might retain the Champions League. They're definitely not going to have a poor season, but I do feel like this season is the season for Arsenal as the 23-24 Premier League champions.
Wow. Obviously, at the moment, technically, I'm kind of wrong because Arsenal in 2nd place, 2 points behind Manchester City. It's in City's hands. They're going to be playing West Ham at home from the Etihad Stadium. Again, we're going to be live doing a watch-along outside the Etihad Stadium, so check out that live stream on Sunday. But Arsenal can still win the title. Are we going to get a bit of an Aguero moment, but the other way around? Maybe Moyes wants to make his mark and show West Ham fans they were wrong, and he is a fantastic manager. Maybe West Ham can get the win at the Etihad, Arsenal get the win at the Emirates, and we might get a similar kind of late 80s Arsenal win. Who remembers them beating Liverpool at Anfield and pretty much stealing the title. They can steal this title. It's theirs for the taking, so long as Man City don't win. So it's not really theirs for the taking, is it? It's in City's hands. But I think I suggested that maybe City would be suffering a hangover off the back of the treble. But realistically, it seems like a poorer season for Manchester City, but they've still got a chance of the double, which is crazy. They only lost to Real Madrid on penalties in the Champions League, so the margins are so small, they can still win a bloody double. Unfortunately, we're getting into Bundesliga football at the moment, and Brits would take the mick out of the German league, calling it the Farmers League because of Bayern's domination for all those years. Unfortunately, we're heading into Manchester City winning the Premier League 4 seasons in a row. And as a neutral, somewhat neutral, I don't think it's good for the league. I don't really want to see Arsenal win the league, but the league needs a new champion. So I kind of am hoping Arsenal do it and City do fall apart on the final day. But who cares? I shouldn't really say that publicly because we are going to be live from the Etihad. Sorry, City fans. I just want to see the Premier League thrive. So that's been the Premier League predictions. We're going to do them again at the start of next season. But before that, we've got the Euros. Loads of videos to come, guys. Make sure you do subscribe. And I'll see you at one of those live streams this weekend. See you there.